Patrick Touhey is here with the Show Me Institute, joining us on 95.7 FM and streaming, as always, on the KCMO Talk Radio app. And he wrote an opinion piece in the Kansas City Star. Port KC has too much power and too little oversight from Kansas City. Patrick, before we get into the weeds here on this, most people are probably saying, what is Port KC and what is the point of it? How would you answer that?
Well, that's a great question, and the answer can get kind of complicated. First of all, let me lodge a complaint that I cannot be a caller in to win tickets while I am on the phone with you.
Oh, come on. Come on.
It's unfair that you give them away during my segment.
Show Me Institute's taking great care of you. You can buy your own 3-day pass, okay?
I don't know that Country Stampede is on our list. But in
all
any
right.
case,
well, you know what? That leaves tickets open to someone else. All right. Enough of the critical opinions of the music shows around here. I've heard enough. You critique everything else. Leave the music out of it, Patrick.
I am a curmudgeon. You're right about that. So Port KC, lots of these ports were set up around the country, years ago. They're nothing new. Then they were, as you might think, to manage barge traffic on the rivers, maybe to deal with, airports, to deal with commerce and things like that. Kansas City's Port Authority is one of the nation's smallest. I think the Department of Transportation ranked them 149th out of 150 as far as the commerce that goes through the port. But Port KC in 2015 rebranded not just their name, and they took on a lot more responsibility for property development. So you don't have to be near the river to get a Port KC deal. They work on Country Club Plaza, which I suppose has a creek. Maybe that's considered a port. They work downtown. They're going to be handling any stadium deals in Kansas City. And they are the subsidy handing out agency of choice for developers because they have a lot less checks and balances, a lot less oversight, a lot less openness to other taxing jurisdictions. One of the crazy things is they require in your application for subsidies to Port KC, they require that you sign a non-disclosure agreement. I can't imagine why the government would want private companies to be tight-lipped about their deals. No other agency that I've been able to find in Kansas City does that. And so it's secretive and its portfolio is growing. And it's giving away more and more taxpayer dollars without kind of voter oversight.
Because the city council really has nothing to do with what they approve or don't approve?
Well, the mayor makes appointments to the commission that oversees Port KC. There is no council oversight. The mayor just makes those appointments and it's final. His former chief of staff serves on there. And so it is really kind of the mayor's port authority. And they've been raking in a lot of money over the years. Another problem with Port KC, and this is similar with other similar agencies, is they benefit financially from saying yes to subsidies because they charge the recipient, the company that gets the subsidy, they charge them, legal fees and management fees. And so every time they say yes, their Christmas party gets a little bit nicer. And that is a conflict of interest. You can't have an agency profiting from the deals that it oversees.
How does this agency function from the standpoint of they don't have any access to the Kansas City budget, right? I mean, but sometimes these subsidies are handled by the city council. So how does a private business determine whether or not they're getting subsidies through the city council and asking for a vote or just going to Port KC? How does that work and what is that relationship?
Well, one of the concerns for years is exactly that companies just kind of go subsidy shopping. They'll go to the TIF commission to try to get something, or they'll go to Port KC to try to get something, and they'll just see who offers the best deal. And that's a real problem. Port KC doesn't necessarily have access to public funds, but what they do is they are able to offer you a tax abatement, right? So they'll say, okay, we're going to freeze the taxes on this piece of property for a number of years, or we're going to come up with a financing mechanism that helps you. And then in return, you are going to pay us all these different fees up front. Regardless of whether or not the project works for taxpayers, we're going to cover our expenses. We're going to make our nut up front. And so that's how their budget is growing. So again, it's this weird kind of scheme where if you're a developer in Kansas City, you have an embarrassment of riches. You can go to City Hall. You can go look. Even the Kansas City Area Transit Authority, the buses can abate taxes and have done that for apartment complex. So it's like a kid in a candy store in Kansas City. You've got so many different agencies you can go to, and Port KC is becoming one of the preferred ones because they don't have as much oversight as, say, the TIF Commission.
Well, some of the real estate bros in Kansas City were in my mentions the last couple of days talking about how the Royals should use Port KC to get down to Washington Square Park.
They're going to. Yeah.
How would that work?
So I anticipated this in my piece, which published last week, and then since then, the Kansas City Business Journal has reported that Port KC will be handling this. And again, Port KC has just demonstrated that it's sort of like an open door. They want to give out subsidies. They want to work with all these developers. And I am sure that because the mayor wants a deal in Washington Square Park or wherever, that Port KC is going to go right along and comply. So, I don't know what the exact nature of the deal will be, but I can imagine it will be free land from the city. Of course, the city or the county will own the park itself, so the team won't have to pay taxes on it. But any sales tax or income tax that is generated at the site will be given back to the Royals to pay for it. And then the city will offer all sorts of other types of financing or deals. Again, it's not a matter of the particulars. It's just that government has demonstrated that it is willing to rubber stamp anything these teams want. And Port KC is the way they do it.
All right. Patrick Touhey's here on KCMO. What's your read since we've talked in the last, I guess it's been about 2 weeks or so now? Any new read on the Chiefs and the Royals and where you think this thing ends up?
Well, I really like what you've tweeted out recently. It does not surprise anyone that the Royals are kind of going to Kansas and maybe even the Chiefs and saying, all right, what's your counteroffer now? It's in their interest to play the states against each other. I did really like Matt Evans on KMBC's reporting last night. He went through the Star Bond legislation and he found that the June 30 deadline is completely fake because the legislature can come back at any point in the future and extend it. It could be August, and they can just extend it and have it extended retroactively. And unfortunately, no Missouri legislator or governor bothered to read the Star Bond legislation. They just, they just did what the teams wanted them to do, and that's a real shame. So again, you're right. We don't know what's happening, but every part of this story is standard border war procedure, which is you get the states to fight with each other, you get the counties to fight with each other, and the company gets as many subsidies as it wants, oftentimes for doing nothing different, just by scaring people that they're going to leave.
Yeah. You got a prediction for me, though? What's going to happen here?
I think they both stay in Missouri. I think Missouri is just a better market. I've always thought that. I did not expect the state to kind of roll over so easily. But again, if you're looking for a dense downtown area to put a stadium, or you want to stay at Arrowhead, like Missouri just offers you a much better environment than Kansas, despite Kansas wanting to be competitive.
Patrick Touhey, good stuff, my man. Thanks for being here. Always appreciate you.
It's my pleasure. Take care.
All right. Patrick Touhey on KCMO 95.7 FM.